Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Babbling Irons episode with myself and Mike. And today, some interesting news has come out that Maurizio Sarri could be, a potential run-in for the next West Ham manager, and we've been shown in a bit of interest. So let's get into that news and, dissect whether we think it would be good or not. Yes, so Maurizio Sarri, the former Chelsea boss and now Lazio boss, is interested in a move to West Ham. Well, actually, no, that's wrong. The other way around, where West Ham are interested in Sarri before we get ahead of ourselves. But Mike, what would you make of that kind of? Let's just get your initial reaction before we kind of get into where it's come from and maybe look in between the lines of the article. But Maurizio Sarri obviously went to Chelsea, had his ups, had his downs. He's now at Lazio. They've just gone out of the Europa Conference League actually as well to AZ Alkmaar, who could potentially be in the semi-final against us if we get there. So what do you make of Sarri as a manager and, his overall career so far?
Yeah, he's obviously had a very interesting career. Used to be a banker before he turned into a football manager. So yeah, he's a chain-smoking Italian don. I think it's.
I mean, just look at him. He just looks so cool.
He looks like the guy you'll see at Sunday League, just going, "Oh, for fuck's sake, Terry! I said kick the sodding ball." He has that look about him, but he's far more technical than that. He's not really a rant and a raver. He did, I think by all accounts, he did relatively well at Chelsea. I think the problem is he never really fitted what Chelsea needed at the time. And, a lot of the critique was about his possession for possession's sake. Now, obviously, in Italy, that worked brilliantly because it's a more tactical game. In England, there needs to be a bit more, I think there's more of a cut and thrust to football, which isn't something that maybe he developed in that period at Chelsea. He was very much in the same mindset. You suffocate a team with possession. It's all about possession and positional play. And I don't think necessarily some Chelsea players bought into it, which ultimately saw it not being as successful as it probably could have been and should have been. But yeah, since he's gone back to Italy, he's kind of rebuilt back his reputation, because I think Chelsea kind of tarnished it. But I think that happens sometimes with managers at Chelsea. If it doesn't go well, people think you're a bad manager, but in actual fact, it's a very demanding place.
Whenever I think of Sarri at Chelsea, I just think of that cup final incident with Kepa where he just refused to come off, and Sarri was just going absolutely mental, stormed down the tunnel, came back out, and that's how I remember him. But yeah, I think you're right there in terms of the style of play is more possession oriented. Just didn't work out for him at Chelsea, as it hasn't done for many top managers. I mean, Tuchel being the most recent example of a top manager that just got sacked when probably shouldn't have done. So let's get into kind of the news itself. So it's been reported from Get Italian Football News, kind of claiming that he's attracted interest from the likes of Spurs and West Ham, and he's already rejected an offer from UAE, which we'll also get into. So when you kind of break down what the actual article says inside, you can kind of see here so that we're keeping tabs on the situation, which is obviously something that we're going to be doing because we still have David Moyes. The ownership's up in the air. We don't know what's going to be happening in the summer. Yeah. But what I found quite interesting as well is it said that Sarri's asked for guarantees from Lazio about the transfer market and purchases that the club make in the window. Now, if he comes to West Ham, it's just going to be a similar situation in terms of transfer activity, the players that he wants. So can you already see like a kind of correlation there? And maybe if he was to come in under the current ownership, that maybe it might not be a success after all, and it kind of would be doomed from the start if we're going to, treat him as we have done with previous managers.
Under the current guise of a board, it could be a mess. Obviously, as we said, he likes to play possession-based football, so that does mean a radical change to our midfield. Whether that be he works with what we currently have, and then it's just a matter of, obviously, Paqueta, would remain in that team. And then you maybe look at Fornals and he maybe tries to convince Lanzini to take that 2-year extension that he has with his contract. Other than that, you don't really look at it and kind of think there's much in there for him. Flynn Downs is decent and tidy. So again, that's maybe another, but as I've said on many occasions, I don't think we should be looking at Flynn Downs as a starter in our 11. If we want to be a big team, sorry, I just don't think he's that player. But I digress. I think with the current board, because of probably the limitations they'll want to impose, or maybe the lack of desire to go out and do certain things in the market, it might not go down too well with Sarri. But having said that, he worked with Abramovich at times, and he wasn't necessarily always as fair with certain managers as he was others. So Sarri might have classed himself in that piece. I think it's more that he's looking for assurances around funds as opposed to what players come in.
Yeah.
And I think it's fair to say that we have had funds in recent years. Krasinski is there, and while there might not be a full takeover in the summer, there could potentially at least be another investor, which again diminishes some of the share holding from certain shareholders. So there could be new money potentially. There is, it's an interesting proposition. Obviously, it says we're keeping tabs, so obviously we're not going to do anything. That would say to me that we've reached out via intermediaries to see if there is an interest. Obviously, Tottenham need a new manager. Will Tottenham go for another Italian after Conte? Granted, completely different style, but will they go for Sarri? I don't know. It feels a little like it's a conversation that's been had for intermediaries. If he was interested, would the club be interested? Most likely, because he has experience. He's a good manager. He's done well at Lazio. Obviously, did well with Napoli before that. He set really the foundations to what Napoli are now, really. Yeah. So there's no doubt he is a quality manager.
Yeah.
No doubt that if he was available, the club would be interested because, again, he at least understands and knows the league, which is important to a lot of our fans. Personally, doesn't always bother me, but I know for some fans that's a really key thing. So he would at least have that on his side with our fan base.
I also think it'd be interesting to see if he would want to come back to the Premier League after his experience with Chelsea and maybe come into a club like West Ham where the expectation is very much different from a club like Chelsea might actually favour him, and maybe why he moved to someone like Lazio to try and build that project himself. So it's interesting, and as the article kind of goes on, there's a few more key points to take out from. The first bit being that he kind of wants guarantees that purchases like those are going to be made. And he wants assurances about those signings, which have to fit his playing style. So basically what he's saying is he doesn't want players coming in that just for the sake of coming in, which we've seen time and time again at West Ham. But, as it kind of goes on, another kind of key positive that I took from this was that he's rejected a massive offer from UAE. Shows he's still hungry, shows he's still determined to play, in one of the big European managing one of the big European leagues. And, even though there is that mega money deal, whether it's true or not, he wants to stay in Europe and he's at Lazio at the moment. And as we already mentioned before, there's interest from Spurs, ourselves, and even Everton, it mentions in here. So, and, along with a couple of other Serie A clubs. But the last point on that article was that his relationship with Lazio's sporting director, Igliter, has been pretty poor. And he even says that it's reached a boiling point. Now, articles are normally like this. Maybe it's not as far-fetched as that. But, since they kind of crashed out of the Europa Conference League against AZ Alkmaar, there could be maybe negatives around that club at the moment, around the fan base, around him, between him and the sporting director. So it's not unlikely that Sarri could move this summer. That's the key for me. It's not like it's a random manager that we're trying to get. It seems like it could be pretty attainable. Do you think he would want to come to West Ham?
Obviously, we need to be in the Premier League.
Yeah. Granted, we're still in the Premier League, yeah.
I think, we're in the Premier League, and for argument's sake, we are still in Europe. Let's say, for argument's sake, we win the Europa Conference League. Then yes, I think he would. The money would need to be right. Obviously, I think if we were up against, say, Milan, he'd go Milan. He's not gonna turn down the chance to manage a Champions League team in Italy. I don't think. So if we could get through Europa Conference and win that and stay up, I certainly do think we would at least have the opportunity to have that conversation with him. I personally wouldn't put him at the top of my list, but it's a very solid option, and he does play some decent football. I don't know if some of our fans would enjoy the fact that his team will be passing backwards a fair bit and side to side, but if you want to play possession football and want to be like the likes of Man City, then that's part and parcel of what you do in that kind of piece. So, yeah, it's an interesting one. I think you'd be interested. There would probably need to be quite a bit of work with the squad to get the types of players he wants.
Do you think he could be the type of manager to bridge the kind of difficulties that Moyes has found in transitioning into possession-oriented football, and also, maintaining that league position and progressing? Because what we haven't seen in the last couple of years since the Europa League is progress, and we wanted to see it this year. It hasn't happened in the Premier League. So a manager like Sarri, do you think he is capable of, picking up a project in the state that West Ham probably will be in this summer, with, a lot of contracts expiring, a lot of players to come in that he'll need? Obviously, the Declan Rice situation, and whether someone like Scamacca or Paqueta might want to leave. Do you think that he's got enough to handle a situation like that?
I'm not entirely sure. Like, the way I kind of look at it, my top targets are not necessarily top targets that other people have mentioned. There's a lot of talk around Will Steele, around Mark Carrick and so on. Whilst I do think I would welcome them with open arms, quite frankly, in my opinion, we should be looking at someone who is not only a manager, but has a proven, or at least has a track record of showing that they can coach as well, and they can develop. Top of my list would be Ruben Amorim. Now, that's a very aspirational target.
He's put himself on the map recently as well, especially knocking Arsenal out.
There's going to be a lot of clubs looking at him in the summer. Tottenham apparently looking at him now. Yeah. So, if he was available in the summer, granted he will have a lot of options, but if we were to move on, that is definitely putting your flag in the ground. But to me, that's also a manager that went into Sporting with a team not on its knees, but it wasn't doing great. Brought through young lads, went and brought in young players, has developed them, has coached them, and that's the kind of manager that I would look towards. Again, Ange Postecoglou is a manager that it does need a certain type of player. Postecoglou, granted. But again, he can coach players and he can congeal players. And also, he's not afraid to buy cheap players. Like, he will do the things such as what Brighton have done. He's comfortable going into the Japanese market and picking out a player because he understands that league. So he would have no issues with doing that. Go into like a lesser league, such as, like, say, I think it's the J League, isn't it, in Japan? Going out there and taking a player, or even maybe trying to pick one of them from Celtic. Now, our fans might go, well, they're not very big players or they're not very exciting. But the fact of the matter is, just look how much Kamada destroyed us last season. Yeah. You don't need exciting players. Heung-min Son was not an exciting player when Tottenham signed him from.
Look at Matoma at Brighton this season as well.
Exactly. Players don't need to be exciting. They need to be smart. I'm not interested in smart signings. I'm not interested in exciting signings. I'm interested in smart signings.
I want both.
Whilst I understand that, I would rather have a really boring window with someone bringing in really smart players that he then develops into world beaters.
It's what we need at West Ham. We haven't had that in so long, just a development plan.
In my view, we've got too much fixated on the fact that, and what David Gold and David Sullivan did has done very well, which has got people into this mindset of, I want both, is the fact that they love to do razzle-dazzle signings every summer. Every summer they've been at the club, they've always broken their transfer record. Now, they're not like, you do that next season. You're going to finally sell Rice and break their own record in the sense of what they've sold. But I don't think they're going to break their own transfer record again, because I don't think they're going to pay more than Paqueta. But what I mean, but as you can see, every year there's been the razzle-dazzle of a brand new marquee signing. Whether they've worked or not, every season is a marquee signing. So
is Sarri razzle-dazzle as a manager? Or is he a smart signing if he was to become manager? Or is it how would it kind of weigh up in your mind? Is he more of a?
He's a smart manager. It didn't work for him at Juventus. Didn't work for him at Chelsea. So you would argue his stock has, in that regard, is gone. It's not. I say razzle dazzle if you're signing someone like an Ancelotti from a name point of view. And I don't know when we're talking about established guys. I don't put him in a razzle-dazzle piece. I would probably say Amorim is, but that's maybe because I have an affection and an affinity for him as a manager, that I think he has star quality, or could be what people are talking about Arteta as right now.
I think our fans would probably regard Sarri as more of that razzle dazzle, just because of the experience of managing Juventus, Chelsea, Napoli in the past, and he's got that CV, and that's exactly what someone like David Sullivan would look towards as well.
And I kind of, to be honest, I don't think it's David Sullivan. If I'm
really?
being, I don't think he is the person looking at Sarri. In all honesty, I would believe that's maybe more in Kaczynski than it is with Sully. I think Sully would quite happily next year plod along again with David Moyes until we eventually ourselves up. So yeah. I don't think he's the one looking out. I think the likes of Trip Smith and Krasinski are the ones putting out feelers, seeing who's available, because they've probably got an eye on either improving their own stake, bringing in others to work with to improve stake and maybe to have control of the club and to take it forward in the direction they want. I don't think Sullivan is the one looking out. He would probably be comfortable with it as a solution because it's a known entity in the Premier League. But, one thing I will always say about Sullivan is, whilst I don't like him, he has often looked a bit out there in some managers. He did try for Klopp back in the day. He tried for Rudy Garcia, tried for Pablo Fonseca. He and one or two others whose names are actually escaping me. But he has tried at times to go for these managers who are managers that have gone on to be on fairly well recognized names or have done fairly well. So he hasn't got a problem with going for international managers, and obviously did the same with Pellegrini's. And I kind of, when I look at Sarri, I probably put him in the same category I would as Pellegrini's. He's a top quality manager, but it doesn't excite me as a manager. It may maybe excite others, as you say, because his history and his prestige and so on. But for me, it's a very solid, sensible transfer, but it's sensible if you're backing him. If you're not going to back him with the right players, then ultimately, as a project, you're setting up to fail, because there's a level of development that needs to be done within our squad to support him as a manager.
Yeah, that's the thing that kind of puts me on hesitant. But then it's going to be like any manager that comes in. I feel like it's a big task at West Ham. So it'd be interesting to see if anything develops with that. Obviously, we'll keep you updated with anything if it does progress. What do you guys think about Sarri at West Ham? Would you be open to it? Would you be happy? Do you think it's maybe not the direction we should be heading in towards next season if Moyes was to go? Or would you rather keep Moyes? Let us know in the comments. Leave a like on the video. And Mike, one thing left to say?
Come on, you Lions.